Hey, what's going on, Who That Nation? It is yours truly, TJ Jones, the host of the State of the Saints podcast, and welcome to another edition of the State of the Saints podcast, live right here on YouTube. Thank you for tuning in, and thank you for those that checked out the live this afternoon, the one that I put out. I just thought it would be only right that I do a live, especially since I didn't do one on last night. Again, give people opportunity to kind of chime in on this particular subject. So I thought that I might bring it here on this edition. Tonight we're going to be talking about Jameis Winston. We're going to be talking about Jameis Winston and his comments that he made, saying that he is one of the NFL's best quarterbacks. And the question of the night or the day or the evening, anytime that you're watching this video, is Jameis Winston one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL? Now I'm asking you all to chime in, comment in the chat, or you can call in. The number is on your screen, and we want to know tonight: is Jameis Winston one of the NFL's best quarterbacks? Now this comes from I think he sat down with someone from the Bleacher Report. I think his name was Tyler Dunes. And he basically said, the numbers that he puts up, he knows, even though people are not saying it, that he's one of the best NFL quarterbacks. And he also said that his career isn't over. He said that he needs to sit back and kind of assess things and kind of figure things out, and he is going to be back and better than ever. Now, before I realized, that this was indeed a guy who is very confident about himself, a guy that is, believes in himself. He believes that he is a really good quarterback, and ain't nothing wrong with that. You want a guy that believes that he is one of the best quarterbacks in the league. You want a guy like that. You want a guy to believe that he is one of the best. But you want a guy that can be realistic. I mean, looking at Jameis Winston's stats, I mean, he threw for 5,000 yards last season. And I know a lot of people are saying, oh, man, he threw for 5,000 yards. That's a lot. He threw for 33 touchdowns and 30 interceptions. And you don't throw 30 interceptions if you're a good quarterback. I don't care if you threw for 10,000 yards. If you throw 30 interceptions, you're not doing your job. Now, I do agree with one thing that Jameis Winston said. He does need to sit down. He needs to sit down and sit on the bench and really have some mental reps and figure out how to get the ball to point A to point B. Okay, because this has been his issue ever since he came into the National Football League. Now, Jameis Winston is a New Orleans Saint. I understand that. And I know people in the Who That Nation are going to give him a pass just because he wears the black and gold. But not me. I'm not giving him a pass. Right now, I'm saying that Jameis Winston is not a good quarterback. He's decent. He's okay. He's serviceable. But he is not a good quarterback. He is nowhere near where he needs to be if he wants to make a career out of being a quarterback in the National Football League. The best thing about him is he's only 26 years old, and he's still young, and he can figure it out. Hopefully, him joining the New Orleans Saints will help him to become a better quarterback. Maybe they can simplify the offense. Maybe they can help him, when it comes to his progressions. But I don't know, man. When it comes to the interceptions, sometimes I just feel like a tiger won't change his stripes. But I'm going to go ahead and look at the chat right here. We got Chosen Kingston up in here. We also got Jared Poor, who was here this afternoon. We got Kirion, who was also here this afternoon. TJ, my dude, was good. Robert Cross, what's going on, Rob? Robert Cross said Winston is a backup at best. No way in hell. Yep. He had bad eyes. He had LASIK surgery. Everybody talking about this miraculous eye surgery that is going to save his career. So he was playing blind, I guess. Hopefully this can save his career, man. But I'm on the fence about this. But I mean, I will say this, man. He's saying all the right things. I checked out his interview when he was signed with the Saints. He talked for about 36 to 40 minutes with the media, and he was saying a lot of good things, man. I mean, one thing you you can't say about Jameis Winston is he's not a likable guy. Like he's a really likable guy. The way that he speaks, man, I can understand why people will want to rally behind him. But I mean, you got to be realistic, man. You got to sit down and say, man, I've been turning the ball over. I'm making a lot of mistakes out there. I would be humble. I would come to Drew Brees with hat in hand and be like, man, I'm just trying to get better. And the crazy thing about it is, his stats are almost kind of similar to what Drew Brees' stats was coming from San Diego. So, I mean, you can take that with a grain of salt. Uh, no, he's not the best, but if he want to be one of the best, he gotta show and prove. Simple as that. Yeah. John T says, "What's up, TJ?" Yeah, he gotta prove himself. And this is one of the first times I think probably in his entire football life where he really had to be humble. You know what I'm saying? He had to humble himself in order for him to get where he needs to be. I believe in Jameis Winston to a certain extent, but I do believe that a tiger doesn't change his stripes. I think that he can kind of resurrect his career, but it's kind of hard for a quarterback that is known for turning the ball over to just completely stop doing it. I just can't see it, man. Let's see. He should have 30 touchdowns with Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Haha, TJ, good friend of mine, told me for over a year he couldn't see my face and recognize my voice. The only way he is the number two because of his experience. That is, let me see. Taysom Hill at utility, which is a number three. Yeah, yeah, that is true, man. But Taysom Hill is going to really do more things this season for the New Orleans Saints. I think the New Orleans Saints, by signing him to a contract, I feel like that's their way of committing to Taysom Hill. I said this earlier today. The difference between Taysom Hill and Jameis Winston is very simple. Jameis Winston is a quarterback that we have seen his entire body of work. We've seen how he operates. We've seen the way he throws and delivers the ball. A lot of people have question marks about Taysom Hill because of the way that he plays, and he hasn't had enough reps under center. So it's understandable. I mean, I completely understand why people are kind of skeptical about Taysom Hill, but I don't think we should write off Taysom until we actually see him in action. If we see him in action and he's not doing a good job, then we can say, well, he's not a good quarterback and he's not the quarterback of the future. But I mean, I can understand why people feel the way that they do because I'm kind of in that number to say that I don't feel like he is going to lead the Saints as the franchise quarterback. So, but I am willing to reserve my judgment on Taysom Hill. Jameis Winston, I'm more skeptical of him because I've seen how he operates, and that's the only difference. That's the only difference I feel like that we have when it comes to the two quarterbacks. Robert says the only way he's. Oh, I already read that. Jameis reminds me of a young Matthew Stafford. I kind of disagree with that. Saints fan 102. Jameis Winston was not a quarterback like Matthew Stafford, who, for the young part of his career, was always injured. He was a little bit of a China dog. Matthew Stafford had all the tools, man. Matthew Stafford isn't a guy that just turns the ball over all over the place like Jameis Winston did. I mean, Matthew Stafford had one of the best wide receivers to ever play the game in Megatron. The only reason why Matthew Stafford probably, hasn't put up like, huge, ginormous numbers or even be mentioned among some of the passing graces because the earlier in the season he was always hurt. So I look at those two quarterbacks completely different, man. I would love to have, I would love to have Matthew Stafford as a quarterback of the Saints. Like, if it don't work out with the Detroit Lions, I would love for Matthew Stafford to come to New Orleans. Like, for real. Like, I feel like Matthew Stafford in New Orleans, it will not only help his career, but it will help his legacy, man. Matthew Stafford is a really good quarterback. He is much better than people give him credit for. He just plays in Detroit, where it's just basically a football purgatory. If he played for a team with a coach that actually knew how to put people around him to succeed, Matthew Stafford would be mentioned among some of the greatest quarterbacks to ever play the game. If it don't work out in Detroit and Jameis Winston end up leaving the Saints and Matthew Stafford is a free agent next year, I would love to see Matthew Stafford in the Saints uniform. For real. I think a whole lot of Matthew Stafford. Um, After LASIK surgery, he said that he was able to see who I was after a year. And we're okay. I got you, man. You talking about your friend, Dwayne. I get it. I mean, look, I know about LASIK surgery, man. I've heard some positive reviews, but I don't know, man. He been turning over the ball for a long time. Okay, I mean, if LASIK is his issue, then and the person that gave him LASIK, they need to give him the Nobel Prize for real. Anyone remember the one play when Jameis scrambled for 15 seconds and threw it to Evans? Crack me up every time. Jameis Winston. If I could compare him to somebody, he reminds me of a young Ben Roethlisberger. He reminds me of Roethlisberger. If we talking about comparison, he reminds me of Ben Roethlisberger. Roethlisberger early in his career, he used to scramble all over the place, improvise. That's why people love Pittsburgh football when he was in his prime. Is the fact that Ben Roethlisberger was out there playing park ball. Wide receivers, all they had to do was break off their routes and stuff like that. But he does remind me of Big Ben. If I can compare him, I wouldn't say Matthew Stafford in my opinion. I would say Ben Roethlisberger. Uh, I would like to see Taysom Hill in a full game stretch to see how he does with a full game under his belt, all 4 quarters. Yeah, I would too. And don't be surprised if he played the majority of preseason. And you can take it with a grain of salt. I get it, preseason, but it's not really legit. But at the same time, man, I gotta say the game that I see that stick out to me with Taysom Hill was a preseason game where Teddy Bridgewater actually started the game, and they were playing against the Los Angeles Chargers. And I ain't gonna lie, Teddy Bridgewater kind of stunk it up. And then Taysom Hill came into the game, man. The Saints scored like 18 unanswered points. Like he was out there balling, wheeling and dealing. So I give him his credit on that. I mean, once again, it is preseason when that game happened, but he did do a good job, and he was exciting to watch. I mean, he was like everybody was talking about him on ESPN the next day, talking about the Saints found the future life after Drew Brees. So, I mean, take it for what it is. Uh, Send Winston to Pittsburgh. Yeah, Pittsburgh was one of the teams that they thought he was going to go to. It kind of shocked everybody when he ended up going to the Saints. But man, to me, it looked like the Saints are becoming like the quarterback rehabilitation clinic because maybe Jameis looked at how the Saints helped resurrect Teddy Bridgewater's career, and maybe he's trying to follow the same path. But the difference between Teddy Bridgewater and Jameis Winston was Teddy Bridgewater was hurt, and Teddy Bridgewater wasn't one of those quarterbacks that turned the ball over. If anything, Teddy Bridgewater take a sack before he turns the ball over. Jameis Winston, I feel like he would be one of Sean Payton's greatest projects. That's just the truth, man. If he can resurrect and save Jameis Winston's career, I think that Sean Payton, deserves to be Coach of the Year just for that, because Jameis Winston needs a lot of work, man, a lot. I was impressed. Williams played in San Francisco, and he was the only good person on the field. Yeah, yeah. I mean, the man, I'm just, I look at I look at it like this. When I'm talking about Jameis Winston here, when I look at Jameis Winston, I see a guy that wants to be good. I see a guy that wants to be one of the best. When I was looking at his article, I was really critical of him this afternoon. But just looking at that article, man, it just seemed like to me like it's a guy that is trying to convince himself, that it can be fixed, that it can be done. My biggest concern is, man, after I got off the afternoon live, I went and I took a look and I went and evaluated some quarterbacks who had issues with turning the ball over and were they able to resurrect their career. And I'm gonna be honest with you, man. It's not a good look. Like it is not a good look right now. I mean, I think about people that have issues with interceptions. For example, Eli Manning. Eli Manning was a quarterback that always had issues with turning the ball over. Not in crucial moments, but just throughout the season. Now, the only thing is that Eli Manning has two Super Bowl championships, so it kind of, put him up here on a certain level because I mean, you go to the Super Bowl twice, two Super Bowl MVPs. I mean, come on, man. But he's always had a issue with turning the ball over, and that's something that that plagued him throughout his entire career. Brett Favre was a great quarterback, but interceptions was something that plagued him throughout his career. But it was just the fact that he was just so exciting to watch, and he was a riverboat gambler, and that generated excitement. People didn't really pay attention to him actually turning the ball over. I say that to say this: just because guys put up big numbers, but they still have the same issues from start to finish, and that is interceptions. And that is something that coaches do not like. Coaches don't like erratic quarterbacks. They don't like quarterbacks that are going to give them 400 yards and 4 touchdowns one week and be NFC or AFC Offensive Player of the Week one week, and then the next week, I mean, just out there stinking it up. They need consistency. So Jameis Winston's issue with consistency, that is the biggest issue that's going to plague him being consistent. So I don't know, man. It's not looking good from the quarterbacks that I've seen. Now these guys had good careers, and these guys finished their career, and people respect them, but they've always had issues with interceptions. And the difference between what I'm saying about those guys and Jameis Winston is the fact that those guys actually have Super Bowls that can compensate for them turning the ball over. So you can always go back and say, well, at least they went to the Super Bowl. With Jameis Winston, I'm not too sure. Let's see. Jameis is going to make you eat crow, TJ. I hope so. I have absolutely no problem with eating crow, and I hope that I'm wrong. I hope that I'm wrong, my friend. Like, I don't want nobody to think that I have an issue with saying that I'm wrong. I have no issue with that. I give you a prime example. I remember when Teddy Bridgewater was playing for the Saints, and he stunk it up. And he was playing pretty mediocre. I said, man, I can't see Teddy Bridgewater as a starter. And Drew Brees gets hurt, and he wins 5 straight games, and I was eating crow. So I have no problem with saying that I was wrong. But as of right now, man, I don't know. I don't know if a tiger can change his stripes. It's one thing like when it's talking about like changing offensive schemes that can help benefit the quarterback versus a quarterback turning the ball over. I feel like there's a difference. If the Saints was to sign Matthew Stafford, do you think the Saints trade Taysom and use to a rookie for that Taysom Hill role? Yeah, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like with Taysom Hill, he was just something that the Saints found, and I don't think that is something that the Saints are going to do going forward. The one thing that I feel like there's always going to keep the Saints are always going to keep, I should say, is a a running back that can catch out of the backfield. That is something that I feel like the Saints always need. As far as a quarterback that's a dual threat, I don't feel like it's something that the Saints look at as being necessary. Taysom Hill was a quarterback that they just so happened to find when they were looking at a wide receiver for the Green Bay Packers, and they put in a claim for Taysom Hill. I mean, Taysom Hill wasn't on the he wasn't on the agenda. They was looking at a wide receiver, and they end up being short one player or something like that on special teams. So they put Taysom out there, and that was just supposed to be a one-time thing. And of course, Taysom was making plays on special teams, and he became like, I guess, like a Saints darling. And the Saints just started to utilize him, when they realized how wide his skill set was. So I don't see the Saints actually always looking for a dual threat quarterback, a guy that can do all these million gazillion things. I just feel like the Saints realize that they have a player with a really huge skill set. Why not utilize him? But I don't see it like, okay, if Taysom goes to another team, we got to get ourselves a dual threat quarterback. I don't think so. I just think that they saw what he had and they just were like, okay, we can use him. That's what's up. Uh, let's see. But if the Saints were to get Matthew Stafford, I think the Saints would really be successful. I mean, Matthew Stafford. I think by the start of next year, he'll be about still be 32 years old. So that's still pretty young, man, compared to how long quarterbacks play these days. I mean, you put Matthew Stafford, who still has a really huge arm, in the Saints offense, man. I don't think y'all be talking about lack of arm strength when it comes to Matthew Stafford. That guy can wing it. He can sling it, man. No doubt about it. Uh, let's talk about Dennis Allen, man. I really didn't talk about Dennis Allen that much. I only talked about it towards the tail end of the live this afternoon. Dennis Allen challenged his defense to actually come to camp in shape, and he doesn't want to hear excuses about them not having access to the facilities and all that kind of stuff. He wants them to be coming in focused on trying to be the best defense possible. And I have to agree with Dennis Allen, man. Dennis Allen wants these guys to be professional, and they should be professional, man. If you want to take your career to the next level, if you want to be a part of an elite defense, you want to do your part to try to make the defense successful. The Saints defense over the past couple of years has been much improved. I think we all can think about some of the defenses we had earlier in the past decade that we had. We saw that the Saints defense couldn't stop a nosebleed. I don't need to tell you about the Brandon Browners. I don't need to tell you about some of these other cornerbacks that were out there that was getting smoked like brisket and burnt like biscuits out there. I don't need to remind you of any of those guys. I think you already know. We know about Jarius Byrd stealing money. We know about Kenny Vaccaro getting beaten coverage. We know about Stephon Anthony who couldn't cover a tight end. We know about all these different guys. And every time the Saints play mediocre quarterbacks, they make those quarterbacks look like the second coming of Joe Montana. But over the past couple of years, I must say that the Saints defense has improved. Now, we still seem to have the same issues over and over and over again, and that is that the New Orleans Saints cannot get off the field when it matters most. I mean, 3.5 quarters of solid football play only for a hurtful, painful loss that always seems to happen at the end of the game. Okay, always a big play to set up a field goal, always a big play to set up a touchdown. And we in the Who Dat Nation are absolutely tired of it. Like, we are tired of watching this happen over and over and over again, time after time again. We watch the defense give up big plays in crucial moments. And it don't seem like it matters who the guy is, no matter if the guy is old, no matter if the guy is a rookie. It seems like the same thing happens over and over again, and we are really sick of it in the Who Dat Nation. Me personally, I just feel like this, man. The Saints need to be more aggressive. They need to be more aggressive defensively. Now I'm starting to see a little bit of a change when it comes to the defense. I'm starting to see guys a little bit more physical. I'm starting to see guys a little bit more confident in their ability, but I still don't see a bunch of rough riders. I still don't see a bunch of dogs on the Saints team, and that is one big problem for me. It seems like guys, when it matters most, guys start to get a little nervous, and I don't know if they start thinking about a couple years ago. For those that have been playing on the team since 2017, maybe they're saying, man, I don't want this to happen to me. I don't want to be the GOAT. I ain't talking about the big GOAT. I'm talking about the lowercase GOAT, where you look like you just let your whole entire team down. But whatever it is, I feel like guys need to play with some confidence, with some swag, man. And also, man, I want some heavy hitters. I mean, I feel like your secondary, man, you want somebody out there that wants to knock the snot out of somebody. Now, I ain't talking about like ending nobody's career or anything like that, but just give them a shot where they can be like, dang, man, like, man, they came to play today. I seen one play once again on C.J. Gardner-Johnson when he hit Ty Sharp in that Tennessee Titan game, knocked him to the ground, forced a fumble. I mean, I want some physical play like that. I just feel like the Saints defense is a little bit too soft for me, man. I feel like they need to be a little bit more aggressive. I would love to have a defense like a Baltimore Ravens defense, the Chicago Bears defense from a couple of years ago. I would love for the Saints to have that type of physical defense. I just feel like they're not really that physical, man. And I feel like if teams that have an offense where the wide receivers can get more physical with the corners, I don't feel like those corners can match that physicality. Now, I will say that Janoris Jenkins, me personally, I feel like that was one of the best moves that the Saints made because he is one of those physical corners. He's a guy that's not afraid to get up in somebody's face. He's not afraid to try to press a guy. We seen how frustrated he had Stephon Diggs in that game against the Minnesota Vikings in the playoffs. Had him out there slamming a helmet to the sidelines. That's the kind of frustration you want to give to the offense. You don't want the offense and the wide receivers to see you on the other side and be like, man, I'm about to get about 120 yards and about 8 catches on this dude. The Saints need to be a little bit more physical on defense. And I feel like that's a mindset that is given to you by your defensive coordinator, man, that demands excellence out of you. Now, Dennis Allen, he is a guy that is well prepared. He is a guy that is really organized. We didn't see some of the same issues that we seen when Rob Ryan was the defensive coordinator, when you had 12 men in a huddle and, it was always late getting on the field. Sometimes you had 10 guys. Sometimes you had 12 guys. We don't have those issues anymore. They seem like they're a little bit organized. Only one 12 men on the field penalty on the defense since Dennis Allen came back. So that's a plus. But you still need guys to be a little bit more physical, man. So I feel like Dennis Allen needs to challenge his defense and really speak to these guys to be aggressive. I'll be ripping them. Thank you for the $2. He said, were you able to check out the fat report on Jameis? I guess he mean fart report. Nah, I didn't check it out. Uh, hopefully you'll have the information for me, man. I look to you for all things farts. So um, the eat to eat a W gonna be better than Teddy overall. He just need a coach like Sean to show him. Now he does. I hope so. I think a lot of people giving saying that he was in Tampa and that would ruin his career. So I'm hearing that quite a bit. Zach Bond can be that Von Miller type of linebacker that ain't afraid and his highlights are deadly. Zach Bond is a really smart linebacker, man. I don't think he's a linebacker that's on the level of a Von Miller. I don't think so. I'm not going to say that he can be. And he's a smart linebacker. One thing I can say about him, and I look at these rookies, and like I said, I feel like we need to give these guys a pass. Because I think they're going to have some growing pains, especially since they haven't been around the veterans and they don't have the chemistry that some of these veteran players that have been playing with each other for 3 to 4 years are going to have. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. But I will say this about Zach Bond. If he's in a game and it's time for him to tackle somebody, that person is going down. I have that confidence in Zach. TJ, what about when he was fighting with Lattimore on the sidelines? Is that squash? Who that from Corpus Christi? Yeah, man, I'm pretty sure. I mean, I don't know if that was Aaron Glenn he was fighting with. I can't remember. I'll be ripping him. Thank you for the $5. He said Jameis can fart when a defender is sneaking up behind him for a sack, but he has trouble farting from scrimmage. Well, thank you very much for the report. And the $5, I'll be ripping them. I really appreciate that, man. Thank you so much, brother. I believe it was squash, man. Look, that what happens in games, man. Like the intensity is high, the testosterone is high. Like guys are out there, and that's going to happen from time to time. So I feel like it was squashed. I don't feel like there's going to be no issue going forward. But Dennis Allen challenged them, or Aaron Glenn, whatever one of them. They challenged him. And, it's up to him to answer the call. I do Marshawn Lattimore. I think he is, in my opinion, the best cornerback the Saints ever had on their team. I feel like he's the best. But, a lot of people, say that, he can get a little bit, complacent at times. And sometimes, like, he can just I mean, take some plays off, which I don't believe, man. Sometimes like when the ball's not coming your way, sometimes you get caught off guard when the ball does. So, uh, hopefully, like I said, man, I have confidence in Lattimore, man. I think that he'll be okay, and I think the defense is going to be fine. And I don't think Dennis Allen and Lattimore have any issues. I just think that comes with the territory. Uh, let's see. Joe Wiley says third and six defense killing us going up the first downs. Yeah, that's true, man. Anytime it's third down, I just get a little bit nervous. I'm like, man, are they gonna get off the field, man? Are they gonna get off the field? And I think that's something that always just plagued the Saints, man. I don't know. Like anytime it's like third down, and also the lack of three and outs, man. Like teams are able to sustain drives, and when teams are sustaining drives, there's more and more time that the defense is going to be on the field. There's more and more time that the defense is starting to get tired. And then when the offense comes out there, because Sean Payton wants to throw the ball first down, second down, third down, then you're bringing the defense right back out after they just had a long drive. So you got to be able to complement one another. You got to be able to get off the field on third down, and the offense has to be able to sustain drives, even if it does end up in a punt or a field goal. You got to be able to help each other out. Kirian says, I hope Jameis can resurrect his career and can be an improved asset to the Saints for however long he is here. Kirian, I think that's what we all want. And I hope he can resurrect his career, man. Look, I'm not talking down on a man or saying that he can't. I'm just saying right now he's not that good. And he has a right to change my mind about how I feel about him, because all he has to do is go out there and prove to the world that he can be a good quarterback and he can stop turning the ball over. And I won't say anything about him anymore, but right now we just got to be real, Who That Nation. And we just can't stop being real just because a guy plays on the same team that we root for. And I feel like that's something that we just need to stop, man. There's nothing wrong with being critical of the team that you love. There's nothing wrong with that, man. Demanding excellence from your team, wanting excellence, and being frustrated when excellence does not come. So I hope he does play well. I hope he does a really good job, and I hope he's able to resurrect his career. But back to the defense. I'm just looking around the defense, and I'm just trying to figure some things out about how the defense can improve. Number one, pass rush. Let's start with the first level. Okay, let's start with the ends and the tackles. Okay, there's only two guys that really has been consistent when it comes to playing on the front line, and that's David Anyamata and Cameron Jordan. Now, Sheldon Rankins, I like him a lot when he's playing. He's tough, he's physical. Guys can't run up the middle on him, but he is always hurt for some apparent reason for the last couple of years. He tore his Achilles, and then he hurt himself and missed the rest of the season this past season. Then you have Marcus Davenport. The Saints gave up a first round pick just to get him. He has to step up. He has to play a 16 game season and go into the playoffs. These are the guys that are going to help the Saints. I mean, when these guys are playing, the Saints are getting pressure. They're getting those quarterback hurries. So if these guys can stay healthy, and you combine with that rotation of Shy Tuttle and Mario Edwards and Carl Granderson and Trey Hendrickson and guys like that, I think they should be okay. Or as long as the guys can just stay healthy, they can have themselves a really good rotation. So hopefully these guys can stay on the field. The next level is the linebackers. We already know what we have with Demario Davis. We talked about Zach Barn being able to come in and contribute. I mean, Caden Ellis, Kiko Alonso, Alex Anzalone. These guys are going to have to step up. These guys are really going to have to be able to play sideline to sidelines. Alex Anzalone, who I like a lot, but once again, you have to stay on the field. You have to be available for your team. And Alex Anzalone, as good as he's been in the Saints uniform, I mean, he's just been hurt, man. And no matter how good you are, no matter how talented you are, if you can't stay on the field, teams can't trust you. I give you a prime example. Let's look at Sean Lee for the Dallas Cowboys. Sean Lee, if he didn't get hurt, he'll probably be mentioned as one of the best linebackers in football. But he can never stay healthy. So what did the Dallas Cowboys do? They went out here and got Lathan Vander Esch, and they got Jalen Smith, and they moved on from him, and now he's up here having to take nickels and pennies just to stay with the Dallas Cowboys. Can't even be paid his worth because he's been injured all these years. So Alex Anzalone, a guy who is a sideline linebacker and can make plays when he's in a game, he has to be available. And finally, let's talk about the secondary. The secondary has to step up in big moments of the game. These guys have to be physical. These guys have to know their assignments. They can't be looking around. If a guy keeps getting beat in the slot or getting beat on the outside, the New Orleans Saints are going to have to make the adjustments, okay? They cannot keep on putting P.J. Williams in the game if he keep on getting smoked. If Patrick Robinson continuously get hurt, then maybe they need to look into another direction and focus on some of these other young players that can play in the nickel. Okay, so I'm interested to see if these guys are going to be able to play and be able to communicate better and also to make these plays and make wide receivers and tight ends fear them. Make quarterbacks be afraid to actually throw the ball on them. If the Saints can do all this, then they would have themselves a top 10 defense. If guys can stay healthy, the Saints can have a top 10 defense. But right now, I'm not so sure about that. I'll be ripping them says big old who farts. Shout out to you, TJ. Great show. I'll be ripping them. Thank you very much again for the $2, man. Thank you so much, brother. And I appreciate you being a part of the show. He better not be eating no W's. Blank man J5. Look, I don't care, man. He can eat as many W's as he want to, man. As long as he not putting the ball in harm's way and throwing the ball to the other team when he does get opportunity to be a quarterback. PJ Williams. That's right. Yeah, PJ Williams, man. Hopefully, man, me personally, if I was the Saints, I would put PJ Williams at safety. I feel like the Saints are kind of hurting him by putting him in a nickel. When they put him at safety, I gotta say he wasn't bad. He wasn't bad at all. 504, you on the State of the Saints?
Yeah, hello?
Yeah, what's up, man? You on the State of the Saints?
Yeah, man, this is Ice Man.
Hey, Ice, man, what's going on, man?
I'm doing pretty good. I came in on the last a little bit that what you were just saying. Could you clarify me what you was talking about?
Which part? We talking about the defense?
Yeah, like the defense, yeah.
Oh well, I was just basically saying I was talking about the levels. I was talking about first levels with the defensive ends and the defensive tackles. I was saying, if Davenport, Rankins can stay healthy, along with the rotation, if the linebackers like Alex Anzalone, Kiko Alonso also can stay healthy and play sideline to sidelines, and the defense in the secondary be able to communicate and be a little bit more physical, then I think the Saints can have a top 10 defense.
That's what I wanted to comment on. That's what I wanted to comment on. Yeah, I feel like this defense, I don't understand it. I don't know why the secondary keeps making the same mistakes over and over again. Isn't the defensive head coach, the defensive coordinator, isn't he like a DB specialist? What about Aaron Glenn? Aren't these supposed to be defensive back specialists? Isn't that where they make their, bread and butter of that? I don't understand. Is it because the safeties don't put any fear in anybody? I know Marcus Williams is a ball hawk and all of that, but I don't think he put fear in people as far as tackling. I think we can all agree that Marcus Williams leaves a lot to be desired when it comes to tackling.
Mm-hmm.
I like Marshawn Lattimore. I think he's real good. Only thing I have about Marshawn is he's just not consistent. Just, whether it's injury or whether it's a mental lapse, he just doesn't play with his hair on fire, 16 games.
Right.
Maybe that's asking too much, and maybe that's asking too much, but he's going to want top corner money. So, you know what I'm saying? Is that something that's going to be taken to negotiation with him? Is his lack of focus? You You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And you know, I like the defense. The defense has gotten better.
Mm-hmm.
But I just want to make a quick point on the team, just in general.
Right.
You know, I think I say this often enough. I'm one of the people that feels like this. I know this is not an episode about reason anything, but I'm one of the people that feel like we need to have a major like reevaluation of the head coach and quarterback. I'm in that boat. People can say what they want to say. I think Sean Payton needs to be on the hot seat this season. I think he's had too many blunders and failures in a row. I'm not saying that they should fire him, but I think he needs to feel like some type of heat, some type of like, I may lose my job if I keep messing up. I think there needs to be some sort of a sense of urgency to win. You know, I like what they're doing and making all these off-season acquisitions, but I want to see what they do in the playoffs, man. I feel like we have a good enough team to win. The defense has gotten better, and they're not like no all-time great defense, but we got good enough pieces. I feel like we got like a star-studded defense, and I don't understand why we can't get over the hump with the defense. It seems like they make the same mistake every postseason. It's always a big play, whether it's a Minnesota Miracle or a deep bomb to Adam Thielen when he wasn't doing nothing all game, a deep bomb to him, and a Cooper Kupp run like he's going down the Marshawn Lynch. It's always like a deep play, and I don't understand like. They're so far off the ball. How can they see it? But the fans can.
Right. Well, you raised some very interesting points, and you also made some very hot statements right there. But I have to say, man, some of the things that you're saying, I can't too much disagree with you about. The Saints defense played good for about, like I said, let's say 59 minutes and 30 seconds, only to have mental lapses in the game. But you have to look at the defensive coordinators, and you got to look at the guys on the field. And me personally, I just think that sometimes they just have a bunch of guys on the field that play not to get beat, and they kind of lose confidence as the game start to get closer and closer to the end. I don't think that as long as Sean Payton is winning 13 games in the season or winning double-digit games, they're going to even consider that. I think we all can agree with this. We all know the type of fan base that we have, and we all know the type of organization that we have. If we have any type of success, then we're gonna keep that thing going as long as possible, because we don't have anything to compare it to. Like, the Saints have had really true success with only a handful of coaches. And that was Jim Mora. I guess you can put Jim Haslett in there because, he actually was the first coach to win a playoff game. And Sean Payton, you know what I'm saying? For the last 15 years, the Saints have won more games than they've won, probably, in a 15, year history or whatever. So, as long as they doing that, nobody's gonna say anything about them at all. It's not like, and think you have to look at the market too, Ice Man. If this was like Dallas, or if this was like New York or Philadelphia, and this was going on, then trust and believe, you'll have like different results. So those type of fan bases are, they're hardcore. Now the Saints fan base is hardcore, but it's a hardcore love. Like, when it comes to like Philadelphia, like, they hardcore for wins. They hardcore, like, if you ain't giving them wins, you ain't winning Super Bowls, you ain't winning championships, you need to get the hell out of here. And as long as we like okay with, and being able to tell our friends that's Falcons fans or Bucks fans or Panthers fans that our team is better than yours, that's okay with us. We don't. It don't seem like to me people in a Who Dat Nation care enough about championship or championship standards, in my opinion. I just think they just happy to have more wins than the Falcons, or have more wins than the Panthers, or have more wins than the Bucks. That's my opinion, Ice Man.
All right, man. Thank you for taking my call.
All right, man. Thank you, man, for calling in, brother.
All right, who that?
Who that? I mean, Iceman makes good points, man. I mean, I get it. You know, I get the frustration. I really do. 515, you're on the State of the Saints.
Hey, TJ, it's Josh and Jesus.
Hey, what's going on, Josh? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Hey, I want to have a slight disagreement with you here.
Okay.
And this is something you've said a lot, what you just said here about championship or nothing, because, man, the Saints have fielded one of the best teams in the NFL for the last, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, yeah, it's frustrating to get so close to the Super Bowl all the time and then just not get there.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you've got to, appreciate the success, man, because, I mean, the Saints were like a 1-15 team for 20 straight years. You know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
Nobody gets to the Super Bowl every year unless you're Bill Belichick. Who does that? You know what I mean?
Right.
Well, if the Saints don't get to the Super Bowl this year, I'll be mad for a couple of weeks, but then I'll be really happy that they probably won another title and that they, are just a great team that we have the pleasure of watching a really good team, and we don't get stuck with an Arizona Cardinals type team. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You understand what I'm trying to say?
Oh, Josh, I mean, I get what you're saying. And I appreciate you calling in. This is what I'm saying though. Josh, I gotta put it like this. It's just basically what you just said. You said if they were to not go to the championship, you'll be upset about it for a couple weeks, and then you'll be like, well, I appreciate the fact that they won a division title. What I'm saying is the way that some of us think as members of the Who Dat Nation is completely different from a New York or a Philadelphia type market where these guys are like, I don't care if you want double-digit games. We want championships. And it's like they're like a bloodthirsty type fan base. Saints fans, in my opinion, are passionate because we love the Saints. We just love the team. Well, and if we have certain levels of success, we're okay with that. I just hate to say it. It seems to me we're more happy about moral victory sometimes than we are about actually winning anything. As long as like I said, I feel like as long as we win a division and being able to pump our chests out at Falcon fans because we have one more Super Bowl than they don't have, which they don't have any. But you know what I'm saying? As long as we can do that, I think some of us in the fan base are fine. But I mean, look, I feel like we all need to hold these players and these team. I mean, these coaches accountable. Now, that's not to say that if if they do something good, okay, we got to congratulate them. But if they do something bad, I mean, or we do something, or they do something we don't too much agree with, I mean, why not say something about it? I mean, that's just how I put it. I don't feel like you should feel like any less of a fan because you criticize the team or say anything about it. I just wish sometimes we will hold the organization more accountable than we do as fans. And I get it. You know what I'm saying? 13-3 for 2 seasons. Who want to complain about that? But it's still frustrating at you losing at home to a team that you should have beaten. I mean, you can make an argument, Josh, that the Saints shouldn't even have been playing in the wild card round. I mean, if David Blau for the Detroit Lions could have sustained that last drive, I mean, the Saints would have had a first round bye. So I mean, for you to lose to a team like the Vikings, I mean, not to say that the Vikings are a terrible football team, but you're at home. And this was really, you know what I'm saying, a really good team. And they were gelling at the right moment. So, like I said, I understand what you're saying. I get it. But I just feel like sometimes we give them too much of a pass sometimes. And maybe because we think about the past and where they've been. And Josh, you seem like, you've been a fan for a long time. I know you probably remember some of the tough times. I know I do. But I just don't think just because they're successful and more successful than they've been when we were young, growing up or younger, then, that we still can't be critical and want excellence from the team. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, I want to ask you something, and this is not to try to disregard what you just said, but I have to ask you while it's still in my head, otherwise I'll forget.
Okay.
There's some talk of building a new stadium and getting rid of the Superdome, and I think you addressed that a little bit yesterday. Do you think that if that happens, that the Saints' home magic will be gone and kind of take a while to get back? Because, I mean, I'm not superstitious, but there's something about, I really do believe there's something about the Superdome that makes that home magic happen. You know what I'm saying? And I'm afraid if they go to a new stadium, it's going to take like a while to get that same energy back.
Right.
So what do you think about that?
Well, Josh, I look at it two ways. We all know that sometimes, when new things, occur, rather it be a house or apartment or something like that, it gives us a new sense of energy. Sometimes, just being in a new place, being in a new surrounding, it generates this level of excitement. But there's also those people, that love to go back to the old playing grounds and, and think about some of those great moments, that they had when they shared at those places. I look at the traditionalists that are in Louisiana, the people that like the nostalgia of the Superdome, what it stands for. I mean, we think about the Superdome, we think about Sugar Ray Leonard and Roberto Duran. We think about Michael Jordan's shot in the NCAA tournament. I mean, all those great things that happened in the Superdome, and not to mention back in 2006 when it opened back up and what it actually meant for the Saints, their first home game back. I mean, I get it, but I just think that, it's time to make new moments. It's time to make new moments. In my opinion, if there is a opportunity to have a new stadium, I think the Saints need to build a new stadium. I mean, I understand people, have a close relationship with the Superdome, but I don't think it's going to lose their mystique. It probably would elevate the Superdome as far as when it comes to crowd noise, crowd participation. The only objection I would actually have if they build a new stadium, I do not want a stadium like Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, because I feel like they have so many other things that can go on inside a stadium that don't involve football. If you're gonna build a stadium, build a stadium that, because you want to have a crowd in there with noise. Don't be trying to build a mall. Don't be trying to build the smoothie shop, all that kind of stuff where people can just be walking around and not care about the game. That's all I care about. But I don't think it's going. I don't think it's going to lose. I don't think it's going to lose its energy, man. I think it might elevate the energy. And also, Josh, I mean, there's a lot of people that have come to New Orleans like post Katrina, and they may not have that level of love that people that grew up in New Orleans like myself may have for the Superdome. So I think it might be beneficial. I think it's time for a change.
You make a good point, man. I'll tell you what, though, man. I always kind of thought the Superdome would be forever, and I'll tell you my most disappointing moment in Saints history. You probably disagree with this. It's just for me.
Right.
It's back in 2015 when the 49ers broke our 4 or 5 year home game winning streak. Thought that would go on for a really long time.
Right.
Because we had 38 straight wins at home or something crazy like that.
Yeah, it was. I think about 37 or 38 wins. It was something in that ballpark.
Yeah, and so it was a 5 year home game winning streak, not including the year that Sean Payton was suspended, by the way. But because that year was just, you can't count that year.
Yeah, no, you can't.
But I don't know, man. But you make a lot of really good points, and you give me something to chew on. I'll let you go ahead and take the next caller. But thanks, TJ.
All right, man. Thank you for calling in, Josh. Appreciate it, man.
No problem, man.
Yeah. I mean, Josh makes a good point. I get it. The Superdome. I've been in a Superdome quite a few times in my lifetime. Most of my Superdome experiences involved the Tulane Green Wave. Shouts out to Coach Charles Alexander. When I was a kid, I used to be a part of the Fellowship Boys organization, and they used to partner with the Tulane Green Wave, and I was able to go to all the Tulane home games for free. And this was the '98 season when Sean King was there, and they went undefeated. And I would remember the last game against Louisville when they stopped them on the goal line to have that undefeated season. So, I mean, I've always loved the Superdome. I was in a Superdome when the Saints got their first playoff victory against the Rams. So, the Superdome holds a close place in my heart. But I just feel like, man, some things have to come to an end, man. All good things come to an end. And if they decide to build a new stadium, I don't have no problem with that, man. I mean, what the Superdome been up since what, like 73 or something like that? And they have made renovations and stuff like that. I get it, I understand, but I'm open for a new stadium, man. I'm open to a new stadium. I'm open to that. And I feel like it will bring more people in. It will generate more excitement. And I think people are going to, tear the roof off the place. Because I feel like when it came to Seattle, okay, if I could talk about Seattle, they used to have the King Dome out there in Seattle. Okay, the King Dome was, man, it was a national treasure. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was a tough place to play. People respected the King Dome out there in Seattle. And then all of a sudden they bought, you know what I'm saying, they built, I think CenturyLink, if I'm not mistaken. And they got all of these different people that work with NASA and stuff like that to build it so all the sound and stuff like can stay in. And, thus the 12th man was born. So all this different technology. Thank you, Jared Poor. 1975, the Superdome was built. But, all this new technology that they have now, I feel like would be beneficial. I mean, the crowd is already hyped and live inside the Superdome. Can you imagine, building a stadium with the new type of technology that they have, man, the acoustics and stuff like that they can build inside of there so all that noise can stay in, all the amenities and stuff like that, and the experience that you can have. So I'm all for that. Like I say, I love the Superdome, but I feel like it is time for a change. I don't know if that was Dwayne who asked this question, but Dwayne, the number is on the screen, my friend, if you want to call in. But understand, like, folks, I only can accept one call at a time. So if you hear a caller, that I'm talking to, just hold off and wait until they are done, and then you can call in. I only can answer one at a time. I do see you when a person is talking to me, but I can't answer the phone or I will hang up on that person. So if you want to call in, you want to give your opinion, I guess we got a new topic. What do you think about the Superdome? Do you think the Saints, do you think the Saints need to leave the Superdome? Do you feel like they need a new stadium? Call in, let me know. They have to classify the Superdome as a national landmark if we get a new stadium. Dwayne, I don't think that's going to happen, man. You got to think about Cowboy Stadium, the old Cowboy Stadium in Irving. They didn't classify that one. The Vet out there in Philadelphia, they didn't classify that. It's just the way that it is sometimes, man. Stadiums, go down, and the only thing that you have is the memories. So, I mean, they might make it, they might make it that area, like they might put a landmark out there to say that this used to be the Superdome or something like that. But as far as like keeping it or reserving it or something like that, nah, I don't see that happening. Well, if they build a new stadium, they better not give it a corporate name. It better be called the Drew Dome or Coasting Dome or something like that. Joshua Jesus, look, I understand that, but you have to understand, man, like football is a business. It is a business, man. Not a business, but a business. Okay, so these people want money. They want to generate money, and they love corporate sponsors. I mean, if they were to name it after Drew Brees or Marcus Colston, then they wouldn't get any return on their investment. That's the reason why Jerry Jones isn't calling Cowboy Stadium Cowboy Stadium. It's AT&T Stadium because he partnered with AT&T. Mercedes-Benz Stadium out there in Atlanta, they partner with Mercedes-Benz because, I mean, they're getting over $100 million from these guys just for those people to put their names on the stadium. So if I was to say, I'll be looking for a sponsor. Eagles made it to the NFC Championship year after year in a row and came up short. Yeah, they did. They definitely did. They went, like 4 or 5 years in a row, and every single year they wanted Andy Reid head on a silver platter. And then when he finally didn't go, but what happened when he finally didn't go to the NFC Championship game? They let him go. So it's one of those things, man. You know, the Eagle fans, you know, if you ever like listen to the like Eagles network out there in Philly, you know, like after a game, after a loss, man, they want to fire everybody. They want to fire everybody. So man, that is a rabid fan base. Like it I wouldn't want to play for a team like the Philadelphia Eagles, man. I would not want to play for a fan base like that. I mean, those guys are like they vicious, man. And also the New York market. New York market is a tough market to play in too. And at one time before all the winning happened, New England was as well. New England was a tough market to play in. Jameis Winston should start this season point blank. Period. I don't think so. He needs to sit on the sidelines with a clipboard in his hand and take notes, and hopefully he become a better quarterback in the process. That's what I feel. Don't be surprised if Amazon buys the naming rights for the Saints. That would be a good man. That would be pretty good. The Amazon Superdome, man. If hey, that wouldn't be bad. I guarantee the Saints will like the check. I guarantee you that. 504, you're on the State of the Saints.
Oh man, TJ, what's up, man?
Man, what's going on? How you doing, brother?
Man, ain't nothing, man. It's Ralph from New Orleans, man.
Man, what's going on, Ralph? How you doing, man?
Man, I'm doing great, man.
That's good.
I got a few topics, man.
Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
First, I want to stay on the topic of what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about the stadium, right?
Yeah, talking about Superdome.
Well, let's talk about it.
Okay.
We're really gonna talk about the stadium. Let's talk about the real stuff.
Okay.
Well, we know the problems with the Superdome. They still haven't changed anything with the Superdome. If you're not a person that's spending crazy money to sit in some type of club or like sit down low or something like that, like you still sitting in 1992. You still looking at an Eagles game and the playoffs losing. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
the seats hurting you. You know, like somebody celebrating next to you, they knocking you out. You know, we got the tiniest seat in the freaking league, and I've never been there well. You know,
Right.
I'm pretty sure that they got some wells that sucks too. But
Right.
to be real, they showed y'all the bells and whistles on TV. They show y'all the film.
Right.
We really need to change the infrastructure of the Superdome. If you really want to put money into the Superdome and get partners and all this stuff, don't just take their money and take our money. Yo,
Right.
look, make this thing better. You know, like give us more room in the Superdome. That's what I think that we should do when it comes to the stadium.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, like to be honest, man, we need to add everything that we could from this point on. Linebackers on back. I love the Zach Bond thing.
Mm-hmm.
That looks like it's gonna be great.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like the Mario can do what I think he's better at doing now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can focus on what's in front of me instead of wait. I got somebody behind me. I got cover guys and all that.
All right.
I mean, like we adding people for that now.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's almost like a culture because everybody has their own identity with their team.
Mm-hmm.
But ours is, on every Sunday, hey, look, weak link, let's throw it. Let's throw it. These dudes for the Saints is just their culture. It's just who they are. They can't cover.
Right.
Like we don't add anything. Like our imagination when it comes to like seeing talent prior to them being on the NFL field, we don't have it. We're gonna pick up dudes in the free agency. We're gonna pick up a guy that we let go 3 years ago. Like we have no vision when it comes to adding, when it comes to secondary and maneuverable linebackers. I know we could do better than this. You know, like offense, we're pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
We're pretty good on offense. You know, I don't really see too much of it, other than us adding what we add, which is, we're getting that in the manual.
Right.
But, we a small guy, but he's starting to get a lot better.
Right.
And I can't think of his name, man. My guy number 11, but
Oh, you talking about
you
Deontay
know,
Harris?
my guy, man.
Yeah, Deontay
Like,
Harris.
like, yeah. So like, we have a few weapons, and I personally think that Drew is gonna play with a fire that I don't think that we've seen him play with in a long time in regards to what he said and everything. So like, you know, he already won over the team.
Right.
And it's not gonna be hard to win over the fans. We love Drew regardless.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, that's kind of like my take so far. I know I talked a lot, man.
Nah, you all right, man. Look, the floor is yours, man. Anytime y'all call the State of Saints, anybody that's kind enough to call the show, man, I'm gonna give you your moment. I'm not gonna try to cut you off or anything like that. So, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel, man. I'm not here to like cut you off or anything like that. You make some very good points. You made some good points about the Superdome. I'm just gonna tell you like this, Ralph. I had the opportunity to go to different stadiums. I stayed in Dallas for about 5 years, so I was able to go to Cowboy Stadium. I was able to go to a couple more stadiums. Of course, I've been to the Superdome. Uh, Honestly, man, when it comes to the seating, I mean they're always like relatively close, but the amenities that some of these other stadiums have, the Superdome not touching it. You know what I'm saying? Like the Superdome needs an upgrade when it comes to like certain things. Like the fact that they just put in a new screen like maybe a couple years ago is laughable because you look at the Cowboys Stadium, I mean they got a 50-yard screen. The Falcons Stadium, they got the big screen. I forgot about Bank of America. I've been out there too. They have a big screen. So it's like they lacking, man. And I know a lot of people don't want to, lose the Superdome, but if it came down to it and it give them a better opportunity and also us a better fan experience, I'm all for it, man. I'm all for a better experience. Now
Me too, man. I mean,
yeah.
like my grandpa helped build the Superdome,
Mm-hmm.
So of course it has some type of significance with us.
Right,
But
right.
hey, if it's for us being like more like helpful to the team as far as acoustics,
Mm-hmm.
as far as like comfortability, I mean I'm all for it too.
Yeah, I mean you have to, man. Sometimes you got to sacrifice, for the greater good. But also, man, is just talk about like some of the other things that you said about the secondary. Uh, I understand what you're saying, but I
Like
kind
what's
of
up with that? Like is that like a? I mean like you look at these other teams. I mean like people fix what the problem. I mean like they go and get people. I mean like I understand that Sean don't like to get a lot of people. With personality and stuff like that, man. But
hmm
we have some guys out there that I know that because he's not like any other coach in the league. I don't know another personality like him. So it's like I don't think it's too many dudes that'll come on a team and not like be cool with you, Sean. You
right.
know?
Well, I agree to a certain extent. I do think the Saints get good free agents. Like I mean, you gotta look at
Mm-hmm.
Demario Davis. I mean, Demario Davis. Nobody expected Demario Davis to be as good as he is. I didn't. I mean, he was okay for the Jets. He was okay for the Browns. But for us to say that we thought that he was going to be an All Pro linebacker, I can't say that I would agree with you. I mean, they do okay when it comes to the draft, man. I mean, Jeff Ireland, who is the scout, he does a really good job getting guys in. This is the problem with the Saints, and I think I agree with you on this, bro. It's the aggression issue. Okay, like nobody on that defense is really fit for the exception of Demario Davis and Cam Jordan. I mean, that's just a fact. No, no, no,
Yeah.
no team stays up at night wondering how they're going to stop anybody else on the team besides Cam Jordan, Demario Davis defensively. Not even Lattimore. These guys are like they don't have an identity. That's just what it is. Like they don't have an
And
identity of being tough. Like
I was hoping that Jenkins lights something under Lattimore.
right.
By me being kind of like your predecessor, like, look, like, I've been at your position before. This is what you do to get better. This is, like, don't try to catch up with dudes. Like, I
Right.
don't mean to cut you off, but like,
Nah,
I was hoping that Jenkins can like bring stuff like that.
well, I feel like this, man. I think, and this may sound crazy, but I think Jenkins leaving the New Orleans Saints was probably the best thing that ever happened to him, because he ended up going to a Philadelphia team where they fans demand excellence out of you. Sometimes, like, you think about some of the players that they got off free agency and brought to the New Orleans Saints. All of them come from a team that is known for being physical. Like, okay, look at the 49ers. The 49ers with Emmanuel Sanders. Before that, the Broncos, who had a really good defense with Von Miller and crew. And before that, he played for the Steelers. So those are three organizations that are known for their toughness. And then, like I said, with Malcolm Jenkins. And also with Demario Davis playing for the Jets. I mean, a physical football team. Running the football, playing good defense with Ty Bowles as their their head coach at the time. So when you look at that, you can understand why those guys come in and they could be those type of physical players. I don't know if it's just the fact that the Saints are really known, in my opinion, as a finesse team or what. Maybe, you know what I'm saying? Maybe it's the way that they play. Maybe it's just because of how they are coached. But the guys that they actually get off from free agency, they always seem to come from a team that have a very physical background and always works in their favor. I mean, even AJ Klein, I mean, with Carolina. I mean, he was okay. You know, he was okay linebacker, wasn't the best, seemed better. But I mean, when he put his hands on you, you're going down on the ground. So maybe that's something that they need to look into. Maybe it's the coaching, not demanding like a level of physicality. Maybe they need a coach with a Pete Carroll type mind, where they have competition Thursday and they don't slow down. You know, maybe they need to have that type of mind frame. But I can get what you're saying about that.
Obviously they don't. Obviously they don't, because like, like it's no punch to him, yet it is. For guys like PJ,
Right.
like we keep giving chance after chance
Mhm.
after chance, because Sean don't want to go through a learning curve. Dude, look, we gonna make up for your lack of capabilities
Right.
with your understanding of what we trying to do. But if you
Right.
can't do it, get somebody in there and at least try your luck, Sean.
Right. I agree.
You know what I'm saying? At least, man, like we re-signed him to a year.
Right.
Like we re-signed guys like that. I mean, come on, man.
I agree with. Look.
Give me somebody that's weird that be like, dude, the Jackrabbit was like, man, I'm so glad that, man, at least he got a jack. Like,
Right.
got somebody.
Yeah. Yeah.
At least you pulled the trigger on somebody that
Mhm.
had some form of like a team coping ability or whatever, like whatever was going on up there.
Right.
Look, they come here, it's not gonna be that. Like I just wish that he trust kind of what he don't understand a little bit more, which is the defense.
Mhm.
You know.
I just feel like they need to be a little bit more physical. I said that earlier. I think they need to be a little bit more physical. I think that guys think a little bit too much for my taste and my liking on this defense. I think these guys are smart players. I think they're good. I just think that they don't trust themselves, and it seems like that is kind of the culture when it comes late in games, not trusting your instincts and looking to make a play instead of the play. You know what I'm saying? Like you can't think like that, man. You got to be able to make the play at that particular moment. I think like I look at that 4th and 2 when George Kittle caught the pass. That shouldn't have been no more than about 6 or 7 yards. Okay, he beat C.J. Gardner-Johnson on a out route. He caught the ball, but the majority of the time they were trying to rip the ball and snatch the ball out of his hands. Like, just get him down on the ground. I mean, the damage has already been done. And by them, like, ripping and trying to snatch the ball away, he got about 15, 20 more yards.
Yeah.
So, instead of trying to get him down on the ground. And now it's like, okay, he's fighting extra yards, and you just put them in field goal range. So, like I said, it's just like they have, like you said, brain lapse at times. But I just think that they just need to trust the instincts, and I think they'll be okay, man.
Me too, man.
Yeah.
Me too, man. We get some more guys like Chauncey, as far as like the aggression goes.
Yeah,
And he
yeah.
actually learned what he's supposed to do, and like you say, trust himself, and he's, oh man, we good at this.
Right.
We good.
Right. We just need
but it's like you say, it's that lack of aggression, man.
Mm-hmm. If we have more people like C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I think we'll have one of the best defenses in the league, no doubt, bro. Hey, man, but I appreciate the call. Thank you so much. Call back anytime, bro.
Stay cool, man. Thanks, bro.
All right, no problem. Hey, man, that's the truth. Like, they need to be a little bit more aggressive. They do, man. They should have just tackled George Kittle down to the ground. He probably would have got about 8 yards on the play, but they still wouldn't have been in Robbie Gould field goal range. So that's the type of players that hurt the Saints. Guys trying to be heroes, okay? Look, I understand that guys, catch the ball on you and you feel some type of way if you're a defender, but probably the best thing in the world is just trying to get down on the ground. But this has been the State of the Saints podcast. We're going to head on up out of here. But thank you all very much for your feedback. For those that called in, thank you so much. Really do appreciate it. Shouts out to Iceman T, guy Josh and Ralph for giving us their take on the New Orleans Saints. And for those that may have some questions, you can always email me at stateofthesaints@gmail.com. Also, facebook.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. You can inbox me there. Thank you all so much. For those that are checking out the live, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Those that have not, youtube.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. And also follow on Facebook, facebook.com, search the State of the Saints podcast. The audio version is available on iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio.com, and Apple Podcasts. Look forward to hearing from you all. Probably most likely won't be going live on tomorrow. I'm headed to Jacksonville, Florida on tomorrow. I'm going to try to do a State of the Saints from Jacksonville when I get down there. I'm going to visit my in-laws. So I'll probably won't be doing a live on tomorrow, but I will be giving you all a Saints topic. Thank you very much. You all be blessed. Till next time, all I got to say is, who dat?